Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining today's EAC webinar. This is Cassie Stumo. I am the marketing specialist here at EAC. Today, we will be talking about how you can transform your engineering process by using Mathcad and Microsoft Excel together. We will begin today's session with an intro of EAC from Jenny Wilson, one of our Mathcad experts, and then PTC's Mathcad specialist, Colleen Garrigan, will be taking over. The session is being recorded. Unless there are any technical difficulties, everyone will receive a replay after the webinar. Please send over any questions you might have during the webinar, and we'll try to answer them after the presentation. So Jenny, I will go ahead and pass things over to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for the introduction. So I just wanted to, if you just want to take this slide up into the next slide there, Colleen, just take everybody into who we are. Just for those of you that don't know who EACE is, we are dedicated to helping companies transform the way they design, manufacture, connect to, and service their products. So we have been partnering with PTC for about 20 years, and we are one of the leading solution partners for PTC. Some of the things that we do is that we, going back on the design, manufacture, connect to, and service their products, we help people. We're more of that learn first organization. So with being the fact that we're more of a learn first organization, we learn about your people, your process, your team, your technology. And by doing that, we offer a wide range of products and services, including CAD, Mathcad, PLM, SLM software. We also help with implementation of like IoT and augmented reality, along with some 3D printer desktops that we work with. From there, we also offer things like training courses on topics such as Windchill, Creo, Architects, and Mathcad, that kind of thing. So from here, really the goal of today was to talk about Mathcad. So I don't want to bore you on everything that we're talking about at EAC, but let's go on to talk about Mathcad and how it can help with your engineering calculations and your analysis tools today.
All right, great. Thanks, Jenny. So today we're going to be talking about Mathcad. And again, that's the digital engineering notebook to perform calculations and document your design intent. So it's really a software for documenting the engineering process. And it's something that you can use with Excel to really reuse all of that data you already have and just take you the next steps forward. So some challenges that we see a lot of companies have is that there's a lack of standardization for how you want to document your design intent along with all your calculations. So you want to have your calculations together with your design intent instead of having them scattered through emails, on pencil and paper, maybe on Excel sheets, maybe some in some computer programs. So when you have it all scattered, it's really hard to go ahead and reuse and share all of that documentation, because you're going to have to go through all your old records to go ahead and find all those Excel sheets along with your computer programs, your manuals, your pencil and paper. So once you collect all them together, if you can find them all, then sharing them just becomes a huge hassle. Errors are also very hard to catch in this traditional way. So if you write something down on pencil and paper, you maybe missed a unit, don't move the decimal place exactly where you need it to be, it's going to be hard to catch that later on. And an example of this is when NASA sent a robot up to the Mars atmosphere to go ahead and do some weather testing. So NASA spent millions of dollars to go ahead and test this robot. It made it all the way to Mars to just crash and burn into the atmosphere. And now that's because they were doing calculations with one unit while a vendor was doing it with a different unit. And that conversion, when they combined their own calculations with the vendor's calculations, those units were never converted. So that means the robot couldn't correctly calculate how much thrust to use, so it crashed and burned into the atmosphere, losing all of that money. So the solution here is PTC Mathcad Prime. That's going to help you analyze all of the data you have, whether that's in Excel spreadsheets or new data that you're going to incorporate straight into Mathcad. So it's going to help you analyze those calculations, those data you need. It's going to help you solve for any any units, any variables that you need to solve for to find that perfect dimension or find whatever value you're looking for. Then while you're going along and you're analyzing and you're solving for that data, you can document while you're doing it. So that means your calculations and all your design intent are going to be in the same place. And so you can share off this one document all together to send someone who's making the next version of a product, or even to management if you need to send them a document. You can send them this one Mathcad document that allow you to go ahead and have everything to go ahead and share off so you can reuse all that hard work you did. So it's something that you're going to use, again, to combine together your calculations and your design intent. So taking a look at these photos here, on the right we see a coding language, we see a program. We can't completely read that right off the bat. We'd have to go ahead and do some Googling or figuring out what this language is about. Well, meanwhile, on the left, that is a Mathcad workbook. And you can go ahead and read it, and it's just regular math like it would look like on pencil and paper. You're not having to learn a whole new language to go ahead and learn Mathcad. So it's going to combine the ease and familiarity of that engineering notebook with the strong, powerful math engine behind it. So it can do all of the solving you want it to do. It's going to work those out for you while giving you the capabilities to incorporate text, to incorporate your Excel workbooks, and then to go ahead and reuse all your hard work. And of course, the document that you come out with is on Mathcad is going to look so much neater than what you can do by yourself on pencil paper. At least what I can do on pencil and paper. Nothing near what Mathcad will end up looking like. So a little bit more about the general capabilities of Mathcad here. It's an intuitive, easy to read and easy to write user interface here. We saw that picture earlier where we had all of that coding. It's not looking like that. It's something that I can look at, and anybody who's an engineer can go ahead and pick this up without having to figure out a new language. It also is going to combine that math, the live graphics, any diagrams you want to incorporate, and it's going to put that all together in a single readable form. And I'm going to walk us through a couple of different ways that we can incorporate Excel workbooks here too. So you don't have to leave those all behind, because Excel is a great place where you can go ahead and have all of your data. You can have any charts, long lists of matrix that you need. Well, you don't have to retype those or redo them. You can use them in Mathcad. You can incorporate that straight into the workbook. Can also, huge thing about Mathcad is that you can manage those units automatically. So that story that I told earlier about the NASA robot crashing into the Mars atmosphere, well, if you had brought in the vendor data into your own Mathcad workbook, it would have converted the units for you and put them in the same thrust unit. It's also self-documenting. So that means if you want to start off with the scrap paper, start off with a blank slate, and then go ahead and try a couple things out, see what's going to work best for you. You can go ahead and do that, and then add some text, add a diagram in there, and then you're already well on your way to your final document. So it's self-documenting for you there. Okay. And it is a WYSIWYG document, which just means what you see is what you get. So that means you can start off with scratch paper, make it to your final document, and then you can go ahead and save it off as a PDF or send it straight to the printer. It's going to look exactly the same as it does on your screen. And we talked earlier about how Mathcad has that strong math engine behind it. What it also has is a huge numeric and equation library where you can go ahead and search through there, find the exact formula that you need, and go ahead and incorporate it into your workbook. So you're not teaching Mathcad how to do all of these equations. Something else you can do with Mathcad is you can really visualize the data. So any sort of data that you're bringing in from Excel or from any other source, or maybe just an equation here, you can go ahead and visualize that in many different ways. So we see a contour plot here, we see some 3D plots, and a regular XY plot. And I am going to be talking a little bit more about XY plots later as well. Okay, so another huge capability of Mathcad is how it can be integrated with Creo Parametric. So that means that you can take values from Creo parametrics, so the dimensions, anything you want to bring over, you can push that into Mathcad. And then in Mathcad, you can do some calculations, figure out a different dimension, and then push your new value for a different part of the equipment maybe, or maybe a dimension next to the one you brought over originally. So you can solve out for the new one in Mathcad and push it back into Creo to use for a different dimension. And while you're doing all this hard work together in Creo and Mathcad, you can be documenting your design intent. You're not just limited to calculations in Mathcad. It's going to have that strong documenting capabilities for you, so there will be no confusion about what your intent is. And while you're doing your work, while you're figuring out what dimensions are looking the best, you can do analysis while you're doing that to make sure that whatever you're doing is going to fit in with your design requirements in the end. So that means while you're walking through, you don't have to wait to the end to go ahead and do all the calculations to make sure that your product is going to fit within your requirements. You can validate and verify while you're walking through it. Now I'll walk us through a quick demonstration of Mathcad where we are going to look at a couple different ways where we can incorporate Excel. So I am going to start us off here with a blank one. We'll just look quickly, and I do have one started here. So we're going to be making some updates to this workbook to really show off how Mathcad can really help you with your engineering process. So you see here, it's the same looking ribbon as it looks like in Excel or Word, that we're able to go ahead and update this text to show however we want it to. So we go ahead and bold things. We can toggle off this grid in the background. So we make it whatever standards that you want to upkeep or whatever look you're going for, you can incorporate that. Okay. So we're going to start off here looking at some beam properties, and this whole document is going to be about this beam deflection. So we're really going to be diving into this beam here. So first, we take a look at the cross-section of the beam. So this diagram here was built in PowerPoint. I love making diagrams in PowerPoint. I find it's very easy, simple, something that I do a lot. So we have this PowerPoint diagram here, and what I can do is I can double-click on it, and it's going to open PowerPoint for me. So that means I'm not sitting here looking through my computer to go ahead and find this presentation that I made this diagram in. I'm just double clicking on it in my Mathcad workbook, and it's going to open up automatically for me. So we're going to see this later where I can do the same thing in Excel. So we'll go ahead and make a couple of changes here. Change this to a yellow or peaches color. Just to really say that this is different here than the regular diagram in the background, highlight out my cross section here. Okay, and as you see, I closed out of the PowerPoint and it automatically updated for me. So I didn't have to save the PowerPoint, then upload Mathcad again. It automatically did that whole process for me. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a few variables. So B and D, as you see, I'm not doing any coding here. I'm just saying B equals and D equals. It's something anyone can sit down and read. And then I'll go ahead and solve out for I here. And let's say I accidentally type in H, which is not at all the variable I wanted to use. When I go ahead and ask Mathcad what I is, it has all these variables attached to it. So I can sort of, check myself here and say, I didn't really have any units incorporated in here yet. So I wonder, what did I do wrong here? So I can go ahead and ask Mathcad what H is, and then I can see where all these units came from. It's because I accidentally plugged in H. So I can go ahead, Planck's constant. So that's also showing that Mathcad has a lot of these predefined variables within it as well. Okay, so I can go ahead and change H to what I meant to say there, D, and Mathcad will automatically update for me. What I can also do is I can attach some units to B and D as well, just typing in cm, it knows it's centimeters, and Mathcad will automatically push out meters. I can change that very easily by just changing that M to centimeters, and it'll change the value of I for me, move that decimal place, the correct amount places over to whatever the value needs to be now. What Mathcad also does for me is it won't allow me to add incompatible units. So we see here that I'm trying to add centimeters, which is the unit of B, to seconds, and it's letting me know, hey, that's not possible. Maybe you need to go ahead and double check there. Okay, fantastic. So it's going to convert those units for you whenever you're multiplying and dividing, and it's going to make sure that they're compatible whenever you're doing other operations. Okay. So here we're going to go ahead and read straight into an Excel workbook. So again, there's a lot of work that you might have done within Excel workbooks that have all of that data. That's a perfect place to go ahead and dump all of the values that you need in a chart that is easily readable, that you don't want to retype within Mathcad. You want to be able to reuse all of those Excel workbooks that you have. So what we can do is we can do a read Excel function, and you see it's big and bright there in the ribbon, easy to find. So we can go ahead and pick the rows and columns that we want to read into our Mathcad workbook. So we did just pick 3 here. Of course, you could read in much more. And what we can do is that Mathcad allows me to set that as a variable. So it's letting me use the Excel data that I'm bringing in. So it's not just looking or a screen capture or just a picture of those Excel values. It's actually reading in and bringing in live those Excel values for me to go ahead and do calculation works or unit conversions for whatever I want to do. Okay, so again, I set that Excel rows and columns there to a variable data, and then I go ahead and ask Mathcad what data is. So it does read me out these 4 rows for me here. And say I accidentally read in the wrong ones, I can go ahead and update that, and Mathcad will bring in the new rows and columns that I told it to. Okay, we'll go ahead and do just a quick calculation here where I'm going to use matrix notation here to go ahead and read out one variable, one number here, and go ahead and do a unit conversion with that. Okay, fantastic. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and define these variables right next to the diagram. So I'm able to go ahead and have, again, combined diagrams and words right next to the math and setting variables that I need. So you're able to have all of the, and you could have made this drawing. And in PowerPoint, again, we could have made it a container where you can go ahead and edit it. Absolutely. But we're combining these diagrams right along with the math that we need. Okay. We can go ahead and do some different calculations with, or just some equations set up here with the variables that we set up above. Okay. So what I'm going to show here is a capability that is being able to lock areas. So Mathcad has had this capability for a while of making collapsible areas. What's new is that you're able to lock and protect areas. So we can go ahead and password protect that area. What that means is that people either won't be able to see it if you collapse it, or they won't be able to change anything within that area. So we can go ahead and make that area password protected, where people will be able to see it, but they won't be able to change it. So that could be really important if you're sending this document out to someone and you want to make sure that they leave one area untouched, that you know for certain that this is what you need it to be. Please don't change anything. So you can have that password protected, make sure that that's not going to be edited or changed later on. Okay. And then we can go ahead and do a calculation out with those variables we set up earlier right next to that diagram. We can ask what that deflection is at L/2. And again, it pops it up in meters. Easy to change into millimeters just by changing that M to mm. Okay. This here is showing the stronger and powerful math engine behind Mathcad, where we go ahead and do some symbolic derivation of maximum deflection here. And you might not want everyone who you're giving this document to get lost in this derivation. So you can just collapse this area. You can have it visible for anyone who wants to do a deeper dive. But it's important if you don't want someone to go ahead and get bogged down in those details, you can just collapse it and not have it be a part of your main flow. Okay. Again, we're just going to go ahead and change these units over here, just showing how easy it is to go ahead and convert those, and you're not having to worry about how many decimal places to move it over. All right, So just scrolling through some 2D plots, we will get into more details into one of those later. And here is the second way that we can really use Excel here. So earlier we took a look at how you can do a read Excel function, which brings in those rows and columns and the values within those rows and columns live, pulls it in for you to do calculations out with it. This is a way that you can reuse any charts of data that you have. So what we can do, this is the same thing we did with PowerPoint earlier, is that we can go ahead and highlight the headings there. We can bold it and center it. And again, we're not searching through our computer to find that Excel document. I don't have to remember when I made it or what folder I put it in. I double click, it opens for me. So that is, a perfect way to use Excel. It's called a container. So I can go ahead and put it in its own container, double click on it, open it up, do all that good editing work that you can do in Excel, and reuse it, reincorporate it into your Mathcad workbook here. Okay. So we went ahead, updated it, closed out Excel, and it automatically updated for me in Mathcad. Again, we have math right next to that component there. Okay. We're going to take a closer look here at 2D graphs. So Excel gives you a lot of options to go ahead and edit your graphs, and now Mathcad can do that as well. We can go ahead and add in a background to really highlight where the chart area is versus where all the axis titles are. And then we can go ahead and add in a legend so we can really understand what this chart is trying to tell us. And at the beginning there, we weren't really able to understand the point of this chart. It was just 3 tiny lines, couldn't really follow the point. So as we go ahead and make these formatting changes, we're able to see this graph really come to life where we're able to understand the point that it's trying to get across. We can go ahead and bold that title, make it easier to read, easier to understand, add in the axis titles so we know what is it trying to tell us, So at the beginning, we didn't have any of this, so we didn't know the point it was trying to get across. As I go ahead and make some more edits here, we're able to see it really point out that, and when I add in the legend, that's something that's really important because we wouldn't have known what these green and purple lines were meant for until I go ahead and define them within the legend. So we're able to see the big bold blue line is for deflections, while the green line here is for the position of maximum deflection, and the purple, which we're going to switch to red here, is gonna show us the loading position. So fantastic. So from start to finish, you really show what the difference of formatting means, and that Mathcad has this all in the same window. You double click on it, you're able to see all of the formatting things that you can do. So it's really important. Okay. So we did that all within Mathcad. We're able to have that all together. Okay, a little bit more about some programming that you can do with Mathcad. You can find how that position changes with the load. And then what we're going to do last here is we're going to go ahead and make a 3D plot. And what we can do is when we make this 3D plot is that we can go ahead and give it a surface fill. Very quick and easy. We can change any of these axes that we want to. But this is a live 3D plot where we can go ahead and zoom down into it, move it around, interrogate it at different parts if we'd like. Excellent. So that is the demo that I had to show you guys today. Again, we walked through how Mathcad can set up variables, can use Excel either in a container to go ahead and have any charts that you want to incorporate into your workbook. Just use it as a container there to go ahead and just read in those Excel charts to have right in your workbook. Or you can use a read Excel function where you can go ahead and bring in those values and do any calculations you'd want to do with it. Okay. So with that, I'll move us back into our PowerPoint here. And I do have just a couple of points I'd like to hit on about what's new in Mathcad Prime. Okay, so we do have performance enhancements that were done in 4, which gave you more capabilities for what you wanted to plot. And then I do have some content protection where we took a look at how you can lock different areas. if you don't want people to be able to change or see those areas. And then this is important for Excel here, where we went ahead and made it easier to incorporate things with third-party apps, where you can go ahead and make those containers where you can read those Excel charts straight in there. And then now you can also copy and paste multiple regions of your Mathcad straight into Word. We also made it easier to go ahead and make equation breaks within Mathcad. It has more Windows 10 support and also fix some critical bugs. All right. And we'll spend a moment here again on each of these here. So we have the area content protection. That's really important. If you don't want people to be able to change, if you're going to send this out to different people, maybe different vendors, you want to make sure that your intellectual property is safe. We also, again, this picture here that we have is an example of how you can use Visio containers within your Mathcad workbooks. We took a look in the demo of how you can do that with PowerPoint and Excel. You can also do it with Visio. Okay, we also have the multiple where you're able to copy large regions into multiple third-party applications. That includes Word. And again, it just made it easier to go ahead and reuse all of your data, either if you want to share from Mathcad to Word, from Excel to Mathcad. It made it easier to go ahead and reuse all of that hard work that you have and incorporate it into different areas. Okay, this goes through how we were able to, if we take a look here, this chart just isn't getting the point across. And as we go ahead and make font changes, we go ahead and bold things, we are really able to make a huge difference about how this chart looks. Again, we could add grid lines and value markers. We can add in the plot and axes titles and add in legends. You see here, this is getting there. We're able to understand that it's a spectra here. We have different wind speeds, and at the end, we'll be able to see the final example there. So again, some value with Mathcad Prime. It's really going to prevent the loss of IP and help you improve your knowledge capture. So this is particularly important when talking about Excel, is that you don't have to redo any of that work. So you can use Excel for its purpose, which is to have a huge data place where you can put everything in to go ahead and have anything, a large list that you need to incorporate in that. Excel is the platform you want to use for it. You can go ahead and do all that work in Excel and then bring it into Mathcad. So it really helps you reuse all of your work with that combination there. And then what you can do also, as we talked briefly about this, is that in Creo and Mathcad, you can go ahead and optimize your design process by having the communication between where you're documenting your design intent and then where you're actually doing the design work. You can also improve your product quality if you're using something that's going to be checking your units and making sure everything's compatible, so you won't have millions of dollars of projects just burn up into Mars atmosphere or some other example like that. What you can also do is you can speed up your time to market when you have a program like Mathcad being able to do this work for you. And when you're able to share it off to people and they're able to understand it quicker without figuring out a different code language. Also, helping speed up your time to market is being able to reuse any Excel data you have. You can also improve your compliance with regulations when you have that completed Mathcad workbook you can just send out. Okay, and just to wrap up here, we see that this final graph here is showing us that the wind speeds at different points, we're able to really understand the point this graph is trying to get across. And that is new in Mathcad here, that you can go ahead and have those multiple y-axes. You can compare your data sets with ease and really get the point across of whatever graph you're trying to show. Okay, and really help you enhance your visualization of your data. Okay, so thanks for listening. Just a quick recap of what I went over is that we looked at how you can use Mathcad to go ahead and incorporate your design intent with any textual information you want, along with your diagrams right next to any calculations you're doing, to really help anyone else looking at it understand what you're trying to do. And then we took a look at a couple different ways you can incorporate your Excel data, either in a container where you can show any charts that you have, do any formatting changes you want, and how you can do read Excel formulas, which pulls in the rows and columns you want to be able to do calculations with. And I do just want to say once again that when we double clicked on that Excel container, you're not searching through your computer to find that document. It pulls it right up for you. Okay, so that was just a quick recap of what we went through. And now I'm going to move on to some testimonials here that we have. So Honeywell really likes using Mathcad because it makes it easier for their engineers to communicate. So again, when you can have everything on that one document and send it between people, it's going to make it easier. And then we have Diesel, B&W Diesel really liked it because it makes their heads of department be able to figure out what their engineers are doing, because they can see the math they're doing in a more mathematical form rather than coding. So they don't have to go through and sit there and figure out a language, either with Googling or pulling up some sort of class to help them learn how to code that. And then the last one here talks specifically about Excel took a long time to go ahead and do those calculations, especially if you're trying to look in those tiny cells. So using Mathcad with Excel, where you're using Mathcad to collect data and use that as more of a database, while then you're using Mathcad to do any calculations where you can better see what you're trying to do, made a huge difference. Okay, so I'm going to pass it back here to Jenny to just wrap up for us here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Colleen. I really appreciate you going through all of this, and it's a huge benefit to be working with Excel and Mathcad and how they can communicate really effectively together to get some of your analysis and engineering calculations done better. I just want to follow up at the end of this, let you know that they still have the buy one, get one half off going on until the end of the year. Come January 1, that will no longer be, you won't be allowed to have buy one, get one half off. And then also, I wanted to hone in on anybody that has licenses that are expired. They will no longer allow you to reactivate those licenses perpetually. So now they have a reactivation program right now where they basically waive all of your back maintenance, put you into a forward subscription at a discounted rate. That also goes until the end of the year. Come January 1, if you wanted to do a reactivation, they would just have you buy a new subscription. So this is a great time to be able to save some money, use up some of those budgets that maybe you haven't been able to use up. Because as we all know, if you don't use up your budget, then it goes away. That's no fun. So I just wanted to hone on those two things. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me or Shannon Wilson. We're both the Mathcad account managers here at EAC. Thanks so much for attending our webinar. And I think we're going to hand it over to Cassie, because I think if there's any questions, we'd love to be able to address those.
Yes, thank you, Jenny. We do have a question in the queue. So hopefully this makes sense, but when adding read Excel functions or the containers from PowerPoint or Excel, do these files need to be saved in the same folder as Mathcad? Or if you move that native file, does Mathcad still adjust and have that link to be able to read it in Mathcad?
Right, so you do not have to have them saved in the same folder, and it will keep that link. You won't lose it if you do move the location of that Excel or PowerPoint. Mathcad does have those fully embedded within it, so you don't have to worry about moving those around within your computer file structure.
Awesome. We have another question that came in. Can you read in macro-enabled Excel spreadsheets?
I believe so. I might want to double check for you there, but I'm pretty sure that you can.
Okay, we've got another one. Mathcad can integrate with Excel. Is this the same with software such as LibreOffice programs?
So that's something I'd also have to do. So I can look into that for you. I haven't heard of anybody doing that. I can absolutely look into that, and I'm guessing that is something that has its own Word program and an Excel program. So I can look into that for you.
Okay, awesome. Those are all the questions for today, so we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining us on today's webinar and using Mathcad and Excel together. Everyone will receive the recording of the webinar shortly. Please reach out to Jenny or Shannon if you have any questions or would like to take advantage of one of the promotions we've got going on at the moment. We will have another webinar on how Mathcad can be integrated with Creo in early February. You can find upcoming webinars on eacpds.com/events, or if you'd like to see any of our previous webinars to date, you can go out to eacpds.com/webinar-replay-library to watch them. So thank you again, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.